Hello everyone, here we are at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, in Spielberg. We're thrilled to be here. It's such a wonderful, beautiful track, but the conditions today are pretty different. Yesterday it was sunny and a little chilly. Today, as you can see, it's raining and the track is wet, so the conditions really are truly different. We're going to see how the qualifying goes. Fact is that this young man here, Sheldon van der Linde, he really needs to push hard. He's leading the championship by 13 points ahead of René Rast, and because of violations of the track limits yesterday, whatever position he will gain today in the qualifying, he will be pushed back by 9 positions. And obviously in this qualifying, every point is so absolutely crucial because there are only 3 more races to go in this championship, and obviously this man here is going to try to collect as many points as possible. So let's see how the qualifying goes. Here's your commentator. Enjoy.
Thanks very much indeed, Verena. Morning, everybody. Chris Hartley here, trackside, to talk you through another 20-minute qualifying session for DTM. And there,
30 seconds.
As we get team radio from Nick Cassidy, is yesterday's race winner. Now, a double winner in DTM. And again, he will carry in the race, but not in qualifying, 25 kilograms of success ballast as yesterday's race winner. Now, the other news to bring you is that the championship points have been slightly updated because the results have changed since we last were with you yesterday. Overnight, we had a change in that Lucas Auer was put back into position, and so too was Thomas Preining. So Lucas Auer was given a 10-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That dropped him down to 9th place from what was 4th on the road. But they looked at some GPS video evidence from the team overnight, and he's been put back into the results. So that penalty was taken away, which means that Lucas finished 4th in the race yesterday after all, and therefore gains the 10 championship points for finishing in that position. And then we had Thomas Preining, who had a 10-second penalty for contacts with Nico Muller. The pair of them had a real ding-dong yesterday. Tremendous to watch. Bodywork and paintwork was traded. Lots of overtaking between the pair of them, but Tommy was given a 10-second penalty for what was deemed at the time to be a robust move. That put him down to 10th place from 5th. However, the team shared video evidence. The stewards looked at it and they determined that neither party was wholly responsible, and therefore Thomas Preining's 10-second penalty has been rescinded and he's put back into 5th place. The other change was that Kelvin van der Linde had passed Maro Engel late in the race, but he was deemed to have overtaken him by exceeding track limits, so that position was swapped around. So the new top 10 from yesterday's race: Nick Cassidy, René Rast and Mirko Bortolotti, still the top 3. That doesn't change. Lucas Auer put back into 4th place yesterday. Thomas Preining put back into 5th. Nico Muller then drops to 6th. Maro Engel 7th. Kelvin van der Linde drops to 8th. Maxi Gutz 9th and Lukas Stolz 10th. It didn't make any difference to Sheldon van der Linde, who was not able to quite get into the top 10. He finished 11th, so he doesn't score any championship points. You saw briefly the graphic on screen to update you on the championship point situation now, but just to go through it again: Sheldon van der Linde, 130 points, only 13 points clear now. He was 34 points clear at the start of the weekend, but only 13 points clear now of René Rast, who's got 117. The 3-time champion is ahead of Lucas Auer, who's back on 110 points now. The same points as Mirko Bortolotti, but Lucas has had one more win this season, so on count back of best results, Lucas is put 3rd in the championship, Mirko is 4th. Thomas Preining has up to 5th place in the championship now on 91 points, and Dennis Olsen, who we heard from early on in the race yesterday after contacting lap 1, very unhappy to be put out of the race. No points for Dennis, who's been scoring big points lately, and he is 6th in the championship, still on 87 points. Nico Muller 87 points in 7th, and Lukas Stolz 84 points in 8th place. Last time we had a rain-affected qualifying, although it wasn't this wet, was at Spa 2 weeks ago, and Dennis Olsen managed to get his first pole position and Porsche's first pole position in DTM. Could they do something similar here today? It is properly wet though. It was slightly changeable, variable weather that we had at Spa, but in that qualifying session. But here it's definitely going to be wet throughout the course of the session, and maybe throughout the course of the entire day, because we have seen the forecast, and it's pretty much a 50% chance that'll be rain all the way through the course of the day. So the cars are released out onto the track. We get underway with 20 minutes of qualifying. We've got no idea what a target sector time is. We've got no idea what a target lap time is. The drivers have got zero idea how much grip is going to be at each and every corner when they get there. This is going to be a venture into the unknown. Nick Cassidy, well, I don't think he'll mind too much. He sort of face dropped when I told him it was probably going to be wet for day 2 when I mentioned it to him yesterday. He hadn't realised, he hadn't looked at the forecast. But of course, he's raced over in Japan a lot. Oh, and off has gone Michael Grenier already, showing just how the conditions are, even at this stage, tricky. So right at the start of the session on the outlap, Michael Grenier, who was running on course for a championship or some championship points yesterday until his car retired, is on the gravel trap, in the gravel trap, and the red flags are out. Session stopped almost before it manages to get underway. But yeah, going back to Nick Cassidy, he's raced out in Japan a lot, where the weather can be very variable as well. A Super Formula champion back in 2019, a former Super GT champion back in 2017, and a Japanese F3 champion 7 years ago now, back in 2015. So I don't think Nick will be too worried about the weather conditions. So the teams look on. Track limits has been an issue all the way through the course of the weekend. As we've heard, we've had lots and lots of lap times. Over 200 laps combined by the drivers were taken away from them during the course of the free practice sessions. We had 45 laps combined taken away from drivers during the course of the qualifying session yesterday, and there were also track limits offences which will affect grid positions today. So Vereena's already mentioned the big one with Sheldon van der Linde. Michael Grenier trying under his own steam now to get out of the gravel trap. Everybody else sent back into the pits with this red flag. But we've also got a 3-place grid penalty for Leon Kohler for exceeding track limits 4 times. We get a replay. That was a big hit, wasn't it? He just couldn't get the car stopped. That wet gravel will have compacted as well, and he just skittled across the top of it. There's a little bit of tarmac at the end of the gravel trap, skittled across that and pretty much nose on into the barrier. So Michael Grenier, I don't think, is going to be taking any further part in this session. So that 9-position grid drop for Sheldon van der Linde, just to make his weekend even worse. The way it works is you get 3 chances to exceed track limits before you start to get penalised. So you get 2. On the 3rd one, you get a warning, and for the 4th one and each subsequent one, you see Michael is okay and out of the car, which is the best news of all. At the 4th exceeding of track limits, and everyone thereafter, you get 3-place grid penalty. So if you do it 4 times, it's a 3-place grid penalty. 5 times, it's 6 places, and then 9 places, which is what Sheldon van der Linde did. So he's going to start 9 places lower down. Leon Kohler 3 places lower down. Rolf Inuyschen 3 places lower down the grid. Then where he qualifies, Devgor, who's been one of the big offenders this weekend, has got 6-place grid penalty, and Maxi Götz has got a 3-place grid penalty as well. But the biggest news of all being for Sheldon van der Linde. Well, good that Michael Grenier is okay, but as I say, that car looked like it'd taken a big hit at the front, nose on into the barrier, didn't really, not too much speed off through the gravel trap, and on the outlap, that car probably is going to have to start at the back of the field, because I'm pretty sure he's not going to be taking any further part in this session. So while that car is being recovered, everybody has made their way back into the pit lane. Still none the wiser, really, as to how much, or probably rather how little grip there is out on the circuit, given that they'd only done a few corners before the red flags came out. So they are really going to have to be careful, build up to this. Try just to get a couple of banker laps in, just to make sure they get a time under their belts before they start to push a bit more and a bit more and a bit more. But what they probably won't do is spend that much time in the pits in this session. You normally see them have a run of 3 or 4 laps, come in, have a 5-minute break, change the settings, check things, and then go back out again. But I think they'll be wanting to get as many laps in as they can. As Marco Wittmann had a tough day yesterday, he's had a tough season. His streak of 5 consecutive point-scoring finishes came to an end during that race won yesterday. Sheldon van der Linde back in. BMW having not managed to score a single point during the course of yesterday, but for what it's worth, and bearing in mind the conditions are very, very different, so this might have a limited effect or a very different effect. The BOP has changed today from yesterday, so The Audis are 10 kilograms heavier. They've got 35 kilograms of BOP ballast on board, so 35 instead of 25. The Ferraris have got 20 more kilograms on board, 45 instead of 25 kg. The Lamborghini's 10 kilograms heavier, 50 instead of 40. The Mercedes have been reduced. They've got 5 kilograms of BOP ballast on board now. They had 10 yesterday, so they're 5 lighter. And the BMWs and Porsches don't have any BOP ballast on board, so they will be exactly the same as they were yesterday. So the recovery team of the Marshals doing a great job as ever for us to get that car up, quickly winched away. So I don't think it'll be too long before we get the session back underway. Not much time has been lost because it was almost right at the start of the session, so there's 19 minutes and 14 seconds left on the clock. We'll do an outlap, and by the time they start their first proper laps, it's going to be around about 17.5 minutes on the clock, so it's going to be a short, sharp session this. Thomas Biermeier, the team principal at Abt, watches on. The team in a strong position in the Teams Championship as well, giving you the driver points, but teams and also manufacturers points, of course, still being fought for. Schubert Motorsport, which is Sheldon van der Linde and Philip Eng's BMW squad, they lead the Teams Championship by 33 points. Didn't score yesterday, so the gap has come down, and Abt have caught up now on 142 points, so 33 points between those two teams. Of course, you can, as a team, score up to 43 points in a race if you get a first and a second. You can get 5 points if you got first and a second in qualifying. We've got Red Bull AlphaTauri, of course, had a difficult first half of the season. They have moved up to 3rd place now at 128 points, as you look at Kenny Chen watching on there. The Hong Kong-based Grupper M team. And then 117 points apiece for SSR Performance, who didn't score yesterday, and Team Abt, who've got 117 as well. And then the manufacturers' standings, it's a 2-horse race now. Audi, 364 points, are 42 points clear of Mercedes, who've got 322. BMW are 3rd, but some way off on 232 points, so 132 points adrift. So Audi are pushing for a manufacturer's title this year to add to their list. So the team's busy on. They can't do a great deal, really, because there's not like they've had any data back from the cars in the first part of the session before the red flag to be able to change things and work on the setup. So the cars remain, most of them, in the pit lane ready to go. Medal car has arrived back. We saw Michael Grenier looked absolutely fine, got out of the car under his own steam and looked to be moving absolutely fine. So that's back now in the pit lane. And the rain, looking out of the window, continues to come down. It's not getting any worse, but it's certainly not getting any better either. So that track is, I think, going to remain pretty consistent throughout the course of the session. Qualifying yesterday, René Rast set a pole time of 1 minute 27.698. We're going to be way, way off that, of course, but we've got nothing to compare it to because all of the sessions so far on Friday in practice and yesterday qualifying in the race have been dry. There's Leon Kohler, who was 3rd in the German Porsche Carrera Cup Championship last year and 5th in the Porsche Super Cup. Comes in this weekend as a substitute driver for Esteban Mout, the young Belgian who's having to miss the final 2 weekends of the season due to an operation he's having. We wish him well with that. I hope to see him back in the DTM at some point in the future. But a very late call-up for Leon, and he's certainly held his own. The car retired yesterday, but he's been on the pace. No doubt about it, Michelin wet tyres are the required tyre choice today. There's not even a thought about whether it's going to dry out in this session. And the engines are being fired back up, and then you see the message on the screen that the session is going to restart in just 2 minutes' time at 10:10. So 20 minutes of qualifying to set the grid. Championship points up for grabs as well, with 3 points for pole, 2 points if you qualify second, and a point if you qualify in third. Those points can really add up as the season goes on. And René Rast and Sheldon van der Linde have been getting lots of points in qualifying so far this year. René Rast has now moved on to 11 championship points that he's picked up in qualifying, so he's picked up more points than anybody. He's had 2 consecutive pole positions, although he didn't start from pole yesterday because of a grid penalty, and he was on pole position earlier in the season, the 3rd weekend of the year at Imola as well. So he's had 3 pole positions now, another front row start and another top 3. Sheldon van der Linde has scored 10 championship points with 2 poles and 3 other front row starts, but he's not going to score any championship. Well, he could score championship points, I beg your pardon. He could get in the top 3, but he's not going to start in the top 3 because of this looming 9th-place grid penalty. So the very best he can hope for is 9th on the grid. Okay, green light, session gets back underway. Hasn't really ever got going, but Lucas Stoltz leads them out for what's going to be a slightly reduced time of 19 minutes and 7 seconds. What that will do, that Michael Grenier off and the red flag, is remind the drivers that they definitely need to get some laps in early, because if he's gone off, other people could go off the road. There could be more red flags in this session, and if that's the case, you're going to get less and less time because the clock stops, but you'll lose the lap you're on. You will then have to do another out lap, another build-up lap after that. Time is lost, so get those laps in early. They'll be keen to get out there. Marius Sugg in the Attempto Racing Audi about to head out. It's the sort of day where you could get some unusual results, this. And there'll be drivers like Marius Sugg and David Schumacher hoping that they might be able to pick up their first championship point of the season. Marius, who's raced in GT3s for the last couple of seasons, and in the Italian GT Championship, and then previously in the European GT4 Series, he was a front runner, a runner-up in 2019. There we go, Team Rosberg watch on from the pit wall. And there, Lucas Auer, who was a bit downbeat yesterday when he was being interviewed after the race, given that he'd lost potentially all of those points with that pit lane speeding penalty, but it was overturned, and back to 4th place, and very much back in the championship fight is Luke. He'll be, again, out to try and get his victory here on home turf, as will the other Austrian drivers, Philipp Eng, Clement Schmidt, who didn't get very far in yesterday's race, unfortunately, after showing well on Friday. He was out on lap 1, and also, of course, Thomas Preining, who got given that 5th place position back after they looked at video evidence post-race last night. On board with Mirko Bortolotti then, he said he was very pleased with 3rd place yesterday, given that he started in 6th position. He's behind Felipe Fraga, who was less pleased with the way yesterday went, that's for sure. And Mirko was asked a couple of times, actually, in the press conference, did you ever think about going for a move on René Rast? Was it in the back of your mind what happened at the Nürburgring? He was like, no, actually. He's coming straight back into the pits. Mirko was like, no, actually, firstly, René never really gave me a chance. There was no gap, there was no real opportunity. And secondly, I had it in the back of my mind that I could win the race, but I couldn't win the race if René and I started to get into a big fight, because then Nick Cassidy would have got away from us. So he was pleased with that 3rd place, first podium for a number of rounds for Mirko, vaulting him right back into the championship fight. He said, did you feel like going for it? He said, well, if you're not going to go for it now with only 4 races to go, when are you going to go for it? And that becomes 3 races to go. See Mirko opposite the commentary box window. A change of front tyres. So changing the front tyres, dropping him back down. So they've just scrubbed those in, basically. They're going to look at the rears. I think they looked at the... Yeah, they changed the rears as well. Maxi Götz then, who's another driver with a grid penalty, 3-place grid penalty, set the personal or the absolute best first sector time so far. It's very, very early days, and it's the sort of session where the times will get quicker and quicker and quicker as each driver goes over the line, as they just build themselves up. You don't want to go absolutely to the edge straight away. You've got to build up to it. You've got to get a feel for where you can get the power down, where you can brake. You've got to be that bit more progressive on the brake, bit more progressive on the throttle. Don't hammer it down or you'll lock up the wheels if you're braking too hard. Understeer, you've got to turn in earlier. You turn the steering wheel, it doesn't want to react straight away like it does in the dry where there's all that grip. So you pick your turning points early, you change your line. Sometimes off the racing line, the normal racing line, can be grippier, where you've got all that rubber that's been laid down during the course of the last couple of days. When that gets wet, that gets slippery. So sometimes a wider line where there's less rubber on the track is better, and there's less water. Sometimes there's a cambered corner where the water can hold on the inside of the corner, so you take a wider line and there's more traction. They'll be learning all this, they'll be computing all of this with each and every turn of the wheel. Maxi Götz sets the early benchmark time, 1 minute 41.175 seconds. Then Maro Engel, 141.2, just behind. Arjun Maini, 143.3, and Felipe Fraga, 143.4. They're the first times. But it's going to keep changing all the time. It's going to be a frenetic 15 minutes, this. The cloud is getting lower and lower as well. We got here about an hour and a half before qualifying. There's 1 or 2 low clouds in the air. We're kind of surrounded by low cloud now. And visibility is going to be difficult. Lights on, but it's almost like you've got somebody stood in front of the car with a full-on jet wash spraying it at your window. When you get behind the car, you just cannot see. just using your memory of where to turn in. So we're trying to give themselves some space here. Best first sector so far for Maxi Götz on this lap as well, 24.6. That's really impressive actually, because Lukas Stotzlug, his first sector time is nearly a second slower than that, and he's 3 or 4 tenths quicker than most of the others through that first sector. So enjoying the wet weather conditions is our reigning champion, Maxi Götz, but Maro Engel puts the best middle sector in. That's 3 tenths up. So they're about the same at the moment. Maxi was 3 tenths quicker through sector 1. Maro was 3 tenths quicker through the longer sector 2. And they're already first and second. So the Mercedes drivers going well in this. The 2 pink liveried cars, one for Team Winward, one for Team Grupper M. And where's Maxi Götz going to come? Well, Engel across the line as well. Götz does a 1:41.06, and we've got an off there, a recovery from Nico Muller. Maro Engel, though, is slightly quicker, 1:40.77, 2 tenths quicker. So Maro Engel fastest for now, provisional pole position. Götz second. And they're both well quicker than anybody else. 1:40.7 for Engel, 1:41.0 for Götz, and then Miney's next best, but he's only in the 1:42s, 1:42.035. Fraga fourth, Stoltz fifth, Auer in sixth. But everybody's learning the track, learning the grip, and everybody's putting green sector times in now. Personal best. We've got Kelvin van der Linde coming into the pit lane. There is yesterday's winner, Nick Cassidy. Oh, and you're on board with Sheldon van der Linde, who is stationary on the track. Things going from bad to worse, I'm afraid, this weekend for Sheldon. No points yesterday, a lowly grid position, which caused that. We've had Felipe Fraga recovering. He's had a moment. They're all having moments because there's so little grip. That's up at the top of the hill at turn 3 into the first gear right-hander, which is in the dry only 65 kilometres an hour, but even slower in the wet conditions. Sheldon's got going again. And where have we got? Schumacher up to 5th place now, looking good, 1:42.206. Leon Köhler on his debut is 6th currently. René Rast is in the pits. He's just dropped down to 18th place. He's just gone back out. So Rast is going back out. So I told you, they're only going to be in for a minute or two, and they want to be keen to get back out there. We've also got Kelvin van der Linde going back out now. Michael Grenier, no signs of him reappearing, so pretty sure he's going to have to start the race from last place. So people getting quicker and quicker. 1:40.776 is Maro Engel's benchmark time. 2 tenths quicker than Maximilian Götz. Thomas Preining on a personal best lap. And you're looking now at number 36, Arjun Maini, who is 3rd quickest, the Indian driver, looking to get, if he can, his best qualifying position of the year. You're on board with local hero then, Thomas Preining, who gave us, along with Nico Muller, so much entertainment in the race yesterday. Porsche ought to be decent in wet conditions. He's got good traction out of slower corners, which means he's got good traction all round, and that's what you need in the wet conditions. It's how quick you can get out of the corners rather than how quick you go into them. Lap time deleted for track limits for Schumacher. That's at turn 3. That's a new one. It's nearly always turn 9 and 10, but in the wet turn 3, Schumacher's still going well in 6th place. Sheldon van der Linde is ahead of him now, so he's gone 6th, despite the fact we saw him having a moment, and then he's on another reasonable lap as Mirko Bortolotti has a half spin, almost gets collected. Some of his teammates, I think, that went past him might have been Clement Schmidt, and then Sheldon van der Linde was just in front of him. Might have been Muller, actually, who went through. But there, Sheldon van der Linde, see the amount of water that's coming off the back of the car and the amount of standing water that is now on the surface. So Engel's been in the pits but gone back out. He's still on provisional pole position. Maximilian Götz is 2nd. Philipp Eng is up to 3rd place now. Arjun Maini 4th. Felipe Fraga 5th. Sheldon van der Linde, we've been watching, in 6th. Arjun Maini is pulling over to get out of the way of this man, Maximilian Götz, who's done a personal best 2nd sector of 44.046. He's 10,000ths up on the split, so it could be provisional pole position this for Maxi Götz. He's about to come over the line. He goes past the commentary box window. Not quite. 1:41.102. That is less than a tenth slower than his best lap, but it's not good enough to get ahead of Maro Engel. So Mercedes remain 1 and 2 in that order, with Philipp Eng, the best of the BMWs, in 3rd place. Arjun Maini into the pits now in 4th. Felipe Fraga's Ferrari is gone 3rd quickest, so over the line for Fraga, and the Brazilian goes 3rd quickest now. Thomas Preining 7th at the moment. You're on board with him as he goes into turn 1, that uphill braking zone. 2nd gear, stay off the curbs as well, because they're super slippery with the paint on the curbs. Slight downhill before you go up, up, up and again through towards turn 2 at Munster and then the hairpin at turn 3. Sheldon van der Linde puts in a personal best, but remember, he's got a 9-place grid penalty for repeated track limits offences in yesterday's race. Therefore, best he can hope for is 9th on the grid. But he was quickest, albeit in massively different conditions on Friday, in free practice too. So there is pace here at the circuit. And Sheldon on a good lap here, personal best in sector 2. He's around about 10 seconds away from coming through the line. He doesn't want to get held up here though by the Rosberg Audi. I think he'll be okay. It's Nico Muller that's just in front of him. Might even give him a tiny bit of a tow here for what that's worth, but the visibility will be 0, and Van der Linde goes over the line with his best lap so far, 141.885, but he remains in 5th place. All over the curbs and dancing around is the Ferrari of Felipe Fraga, which sends him wide and into the gravel trap and possibly into the barrier. Does he keep it out of the barrier? I think he might have. He's on the escape road. Yeah, well saved, Felipe. It looked like for a moment he wasn't going to be able to get that stopped in time, but he uses the escape route, gets back on track. The lap is ruined. There'll be lots of gravel flicked back through onto the track, but the car should be okay, and he'll be able to continue on, the driver that's currently 3rd quickest. Now, Nick Cassidy, his teammate, has just done a personal best first sector and was really good in the second sector, and the first sector was really good as well. Not absolute best, but a 24.98. Anything under a 25 is good. So this looks like it's going to probably project him right up the order here, and indeed he goes 6th place now in the AlphaTauri AF Corsa with a 141.9. And Maximilian Götz has just done the absolute best first and third sectors before he came out. It's the middle sector where he needs to just find a bit more pace. So he's in the pits now, but Maxi Götz on his previous lap, absolute best at the start and the end of the lap, but the longest sector, the middle of the lap, was where he lost out by a couple of tenths. So try and work on that. Fraga's back into the pits now after that excursion, but Maro Engel, who's on provisional pole, is back out. We've got 7 minutes 20 seconds left on the clock. Watching Sheldon van der Linde, who's just off it a little bit in the first sector, good in the second sector, but is trying to get up the order and looks like he's bailing for the pits. René Rast, where is René at the moment? We're pushing on towards the end of this lap, trying to get himself up from 17th place. Any good this one? Better, but not great. 10th place for the driver that's second in the championship standings. Nick Cassidy, look, a 24.89, personal best first sector. Almost as good as anybody else has done through sector 1. 44.08 is very good as well through sector 2. So Cassidy currently in 6th place, 1.1 seconds away from pole position, but only a tenth of a second away from being 3rd quickest. You can see the rain coming down on the windscreen there. Visibility's not too bad when you've got nobody in front of you, but as soon as you're behind somebody, it absolutely disappears. Just holding on the throttle there to make sure he doesn't go over the curbs. Still takes the inside curb, finds the grip there. Nowhere near the curbs on the exit to turn 10. They're all over the curbs in the dry, but not in the wet. What's this going to put Nick up to 3rd place? Didn't need to find much to go from 6th to 3rd, and that's exactly what he's done. So his lap now 141.750, but it's still nearly a second slower, that mega lap from Maro Engel. Maro's just had his most recent lap time deleted for track limits at turn 1, but it's a lot more forgivable to exceed track limits today, because trying to get these things turned in with this little grip, it's going to be hard work. Watching Ricardo Feller pushing on. He had a really good start to the race yesterday, but contact with Felipe Fraga at turn 3 on lap 1 put him down the order, and he never really recovered from that. Probably carrying some damage to the car as well, but Philippe, we've got a red flag coming out, so the car's slowing down in front of me. Red lights on, red flag out, so somebody's had a big off. We've got 5.5 minutes left on the clock, and the session is suspended. So the clock stops with 5 minutes and 42 seconds on it, looking at the timing screen. And this is going to be frenetic for the teams. And it's Dev Gore that's gone off. So Dev Gore off, and he's reversed into the barriers. And that means he's in a precarious position. So if he's off, somebody else could come off in the same spot. And he's gone way through the gravel trap and couldn't get onto that escape road like Felipe Fraga. So session stopped. Catch a breath. Maro Engel from very early on in the session, impressively, that 1 minute 40.776, the fastest time so far, 2 tenths up on Maximilian Götz, who's actually been quicker on 2/3 of the lap, but lost out in the middle sector. So Götz quickest in sector 1 with a 24.6. and a 31.6. He was quickest in sector 3, but Engel was quickest in sector 2 with a 43.9. Nick Cassidy, we saw just going up to third place with a 141.750. That put him only 35 thousandths of a second ahead of his teammate Felipe Fraga. So Ferrari's third and fourth at the moment, despite the extra BOP ballast. However, that's not such a big impact in wet conditions. So those two going well. Philip Eng fifth, Shelton van der Linde sixth, but with a 9-place grid penalty. Arjun Maini 7th, Thomas Preining 8th. David Schumacher is currently in 9th place. René Rast is in 10th. Leon Kohler, who's also got a 3-place grid penalty, is 11th. Ricardo Feller was just about to push for a lap, but the red flags came out and remains out of the top 10 in 12th place. And it was through turn 2, the Munster turn, flat out. Almost recovered it, a full 360, but then just snap oversteered as he straightened up through the gravel trap there for Nico Muller, and luckily he gets out of the gravel trap. So we saw him recovering a few laps ago. That was his moment. We also saw Mirko Bortolotti getting the power down, the back end going out on that Lamborghini Huracan, more than 500 brake horsepower. Around it went, and he just kissed the gravel trap, but it was when he recovered that he almost got collected. I think it was Nico Muller actually that came past him. You'll see him flash past the windscreen in a second. That was tight. And then Shelton van der Linde came past. And another moment here, or another angle of the moment here. And ooh, yeah, Nico did have to move out of the way, and Sheldon had to keep it out wide as well. But luckily they all got away with it. We saw Felipe Fraga dancing on the curbs. That then sent him through the gravel trap. But he got away with this one, as he did enough to knock the speed off, and then just simply turned into the escape road, turned left, avoided the barrier, and continued on back to the pits. But there's so much surface water out there. The rain has continued. In fact, it's got a lot heavier over the last 5 or 6 minutes. So, you know, how much grip you thought you could find on the track at the start of the session is different now. It's different with each and every arrival at each corner. To go down the rest of the field, Lucas Stoltz 13th, Lucas Auer, championship contender, only 14th at the moment. Nico Muller 15th, Marco Wittmann 16th, Dennis Olsen 17th. The SSR Performance Porsches have struggled this year most of the time in qualifying. They had been getting better in qualifying, but it's not going well at the moment. They might not have had a chance to get the lap in with these red flags. That could have been scuppering quite a few drivers. I think you're on a good lap and then the red flags ruin it for you. Dennis Olsen then 17th, Clement Schmidt 18th. Dev Gore is the one that's caused the red flag by going off the gravel trap and still in the car. So they're talking with him, but he's getting out of the car now. The doctors wanted to check, the medical team wanted to check he was okay, but he's out of the car, which is a relief. So good to see the American driver okay, but he looks a little bit winded, doesn't he? So our best to Dev. Hopefully he's going to be okay for the race later on. Lawrence Vantour is 20th, Maxi Buch is 21st, Mirko Bortolotti is only 22nd at the moment, Mario Sugg 23rd, Kelvin van der Linde back in 24th, and then we've got Rolf Inischen, Alessio De Leda, and no Michael Grenier, because he went off to cause the first red flag within 30 seconds of the start of the session. So that's the way it stands, but 5 minutes 42 seconds on the clock. So it's going to be a short, sharp sprint this. When they get back going again, it's going to take a minute and a half, no, probably 2 minutes actually, to get out of the pits and get back to the start line. So you're looking at about 3 minutes of running. They're not really going to be going for it on the first lap. So probably one, maybe some of them at the head of the queue, and it'll be important to be at the head of the queue to get out the pit lane. You might just squeeze an extra lap out of it before the flag comes out. Right, we're going to get a replay now of presumably the Dev Gore moment. No, that was, I think, Leon Kohler having a big twitch coming up the hill through turn 2. And it's mighty quick up there. The dry, 245 kilometres an hour through that kink. So everybody queued up and ready to go. No news yet on the restart time. As soon as we get it, we'll let you know. But we've seen that Dev Gore is out of the car. So the doctors and the medical team will be away from the incident. It's just a case of getting the car out of the way now. It's off track, it's in the gravel trap, but you don't want a quick car to hit a stationary car. They've also had to put back in place some of the barrier protection, which they're working on now. So inevitable with these conditions really being as bad as they are that you're going to get some red flags, which is why you want to be on that track as much as you can, because the red flags mean you're not going to get many timed laps in this. Rain getting worse and worse as it goes on as well, which I feel for the officials working out in all of that, and the volunteer marshals who'd be stood out in that all day long. Massive thanks to all the marshals for all their fantastic work. There is Thomas Preining, who gave us that fantastic battle with Nico Mully yesterday. It was pretty brutal between the pair of them, but it was proper ding-dong racing, and certainly the biggest highlight of the race. And it went on and on and on, didn't it? They passed each other 3, 4, 5 times. Penalty given to Thomas Preining at the end of the race, which initially put him from 5th down to 10th place, but then I looked at video evidence and rescinded that overnight. So 5th place finish for Thomas yesterday, who is now, over the last 7 races, the joint biggest point scorer of the last 7 races with Dennis Olsen, who didn't score yesterday, which is why he's rocketed up to 5th place in the championship. Well done to the spectators who are suffering this weather, but always thinking of these sort of things. Look, the circuit, the Red Bull Ring have offered out these ponchos, so everybody's to a degree keeping dry. It's not particularly warm either. It is just under 10 degrees, the temperature, 9.5 degrees. Track temperature is really cool as well, as you'd expect with this weather, at less than 7 degrees. It doesn't look that bad from the overhead shot of the pit lane there, the rain, but trust me, looking out of the window, it's bouncing off the floor at the moment on the start-finish straight. So the drivers sitting in the cars, ready to go, but when they do get going again, it's going to be absolutely frantic. And as I say, if you get ahead of the queue, that might just help you get an extra lap or 2 in. Steaming up is always an issue in these conditions as well, especially when you're stationary and there's no airflow. Lucas Auer wanting to get back out there and get on with the run. So Maro Engel then, a driver that's on provisional pole and with a comfortable advantage as well of 0.2 of a second. He's 9/10 clear of Nick Cassidy in 3rd place as well. So Maro Engel looking good here. He's never had a pole position. He's been a DTM race winner. That was back in the Class 1 era. He actually won a race in Russia right from the very back of the field. He's been a Blancpain GT champion though. He's been a Nürburgring 24-hour winner. He's won the GT race at Macau. So he is a top driver. Very likeable German. This is going to be his 72nd race in the DTM later on this afternoon. But he's never had a pole position as a win. He's had 2 podiums. But could he get a pole position? If he does, he's going to be the 10th different pole sitter of this season as well. Dennis Olsen looking under the car. So it might have been another one that's had an off, or they might just be tweaking the setup of the car while they've got a breather. But they want to get him out there as soon as they can, because I don't think it's going to be too far away before we get the session back underway, which is why they're rushing to get it done. So front's changed. They're looking at the rear now and trying to get Dennis Olsen up the order, because he's currently in 17th place. Dan beat yesterday, but we all know in DTM you only kind of have to have one good day on a weekend and you keep yourself in the championship fight, because nobody's getting 2 good days on the bounce generally, not very often anyway. Double podium for René Rast at the Norris Ring with 2/3. Thomas Preining did the same thing last time out at Spa, but those double podiums, those double points finishes this year are few and far between. Maximilian Gutz, the reigning champion, he's looking for his first win of the season. He got his first podium of the season last time out at Spa. Pushed hard in 2nd place towards the closing stages of the race. This is something they've got to be careful of. You are allowed to dry your pit box area outside of the garage. What you do in the garage is fine, but outside of the garages, you can only do it with a brush or one of those sort of rubber formatted wipers. You use anything else like rags or towels to dry your pit area, then you get in trouble, and that was the cause of a lot of fines at Spa. Something they try to do really when it's all drying up, rather than today when it's properly wet. But if you try to get a bit more grip for your car when it comes out of the pit box after the pit stop, you've got to be careful how you dry the box. But I don't think they're going to be thinking about drying anything today, because it's going to stay, certainly for now, for this qualifying session, very wet. I can see Luca Stoltz is just being released from his garage to join the queue. Tommy Preining is the nearest to the pit lane entry, his pit garage, right next to the podium. So he's waiting just outside his garage. And then you've got Lucas Auer, who's still in the garage, but most of them queued up in the pit lane. Maxi Gotts has been pushed to the front of his garage now as well. Obviously, Clement Schmidt and Alessio De Leda are still in the garages. They're opposite the commentary box, but most of them are keen to get in that queue. Alfination is the one that's going to be at the head of the queue when they get back out there. Arjun Maini's going to be up there as well, isn't he? He was third at one stage, but he's dropped down to 7th place now. But it's pretty tight behind the top three. 141.7s, but both Cassidy and Fraga, who are third and fourth. 141.8s for Engen, Sheldon van der Linde in 5th and 6th. So only a 1/10 of a second or so between those 4 drivers. And then pretty closely matched there. But when you look at the dry conditions, that we usually get about 20, 22, 23 cars covered by less than a second, here we've got much bigger gaps. So only the top 3 are covered by less than a second as the session gets back underway. At the moment, you've got nearly 7 seconds covering the whole field. So it all spreads out a bit more in terms of the times, but lots of it is because drivers are just struggling to get a proper lap in. They might make a mistake, they might find a car off the road in front of them, they might find a red flag. So back out they go. Clock already ticks down, of course, so we've already lost basically 30 seconds and they're still not on the track. They've got to get all the way around to the start-finish line. They're unlikely, with the tyres still to get up to temperature, to go really quick on their first lap, so it's that second lap. And I think it's probably going to be the only lap they get. They might, if you're ahead of the queue, you might just sneak an extra lap in. That could be critical. Could be critical. But look, the cloud's getting really low now. As you go up towards turn 3, you can see there they are very low. I mean, they're very low, and we're very high up at this part of the world as well. But making visibility really tricky for the drivers who are sat basically at floor level. So there's Sheldon van der Linde. Just got to try and keep cool, try and keep positive. Pressure building on him, but the youngster has got to just put it to the back of his mind almost, that championship. Try not to think about it too much and just treat each session for its own merits. Qualify where you can, do what you can in the race. Just get yourself to Hockenheim in the mix. René Rast has said, you know, he's been asked, are you looking at the points? And he's like, yeah, I'm looking at the points, but really the target is just to get to Hockenheim with a chance of the championship title. It doesn't really matter if I'm 10 points behind or 5 points behind or 10 points ahead. As long as I get to that last round and I've got a chance of the championship, that's my only goal at the moment. And that, I think, is certainly going to be the case. Mathematically, it cannot be wrapped up today now after Sheldon failed to score in yesterday's race. He's right behind Felipe Fraga. He's already got himself ahead of Nick Cassidy. And as I say, they're keen to get through this outlap pretty quickly. Might just sneak another lap in if they can. So everybody out set for Mirko Bortolotti, still shown in the pit lane. And of course we've lost Grenier and Gore. So here they come, getting to the line. First few have gone through already with about 3.5 minutes to go. Sheldon van der Linde crosses the line with about 3 minutes and 13 seconds left on the clock. 1 minute and 40 to get it around. He's going to get 2 laps out of this. 2 laps, but this first lap you doubt is going to be up to much, given they're still getting the tyres up to temperature, and they've got to figure out the weather. I mean, the track just might not be as quick now because it's got worse, the weather. And of course there's more standing water now because there haven't been any cars going around the circuit for the last 15 minutes or so during the red flag. So might be that nobody improves. That was Sheldon van der Linde as we cut away, about to go straight on and miss the apex due to the conditions. There's Calvin van der Linde, his older brother, third in the championship last year. He needs to try and push on here to get himself up the order as well, because at the moment he's back in 24th position. Clement Schmidt comes straight back into the pits. And only 2 minutes 20 seconds to go. Struggling to get another lap out of this, isn't he? And then we've got Kelvin van der Linde, though, with a personal best second sector. Needs this. Ricardo Feller on the personal best first sector, but he's half a second down on the absolute best first sector. So it's not great from Ricardo Feller, but it is an improvement as he tries to get up the order. He's 12th at the moment. Kelvin van der Linde creeps a couple of places up the order, but only 22nd. He's crossed the line with less than 2 minutes to go. He will get 2 laps out of this, though. He'll get back with about 15 or 16 seconds left on the clock. So Kelvin's going to get another lap on top of the one he's just started for sure. And Philippe will probably do the same. Yeah, he's going to get about 5 seconds to go when he gets back here, so he'll have another chance. Maybe, because that's only if the session stays green. Ricardo Feller being in the gravel trap, and he's buried. The rear wheels dig in, and he's going nowhere, and he's in a precarious position. Of course, everybody has to slow through that part of the course. Yellow flags there. Ricardo Feller beached at the moment, and that could curtail anybody's chances of improving. And the only one that's going to be pleased, well, a few people will be pleased, but the only one that's going to be pleased really is going to be Maro Engel. The red flag comes out, session is stopped, And that's probably going to be it. Yes, the session will not restart, it says on the screen. Replay, and these conditions are so difficult. You turn in, the car just doesn't want to respond to you. And you touch the accelerator, and even with the wet tyres on, so much surface water that the wheels just want to spin out and you lose control. So the session is stopped, and that means a maiden pole position in the DTM for Maro Engel. And amazingly did that lap really early on.
No, not enough for pole, but...
So Maro Engel gets pole position. Mercedes 1-2 with Maxi Götz with his best qualifying of the year. Maxi's never had a pole either, but second place, he'll be very happy with that. 0.2 of a second between them. Nick Cassidy, whose fine form continues. 2 wins on the bounce. Another championship point for him. 3rd place on the grid. Felipe Fraga 4th. Philip Eng 5th. Sheldon van der Linde 6th, but he's got a 9th-place grid penalty. And that is going to put him down, looking at the drivers behind him, I think it'll put him down 8 places, because Leon Kohler is one of the drivers he would drop behind, but Leon, who's 11th, has got a 3-place grid penalty as well. So I think it'll be 14th on the grid for Sheldon van der Linde. Arjun Maini is 7th. Really good session for Arjun. Tommy Preining 8th. David Schumacher will be pleased with 9th place, I reckon. And then rounding out the top 10, René Rast, which doesn't sound great, 10th place, but he's ahead of all of his championship rivals there. So none of the championship frontrunners are going to be that high up the grid. Could be a really different result, this. René Rast, the best of them, qualifying 10th. Leon Kohler's 11th on the grid, but has got a 3-place grid penalty. Ricardo Feller ended the session in the gravel trap, brought about the 3rd red flag, and stopped the session with 1 minute and 20 seconds to go. He'll start 12th, or he qualified 12th. Lucas Stoltz 13th, Lucas Auer, championship contender 14th, Nico Muller 15th, Marco Wittmann 16th, Dennis Olsen never got the chance to improve 17th, Clement Schmidt 18th, Dev Gore out of the session but 19th, Lawrence Van Toor 20th, Maxi Buch 21st, Kelvin van der Linde, he'll be worth a watch in the race from 22nd on the grid, and Mirko Bortolotti only 23rd on the grid. The driver that is right up there, 4th in the championship standings. There's a replay, we just saw the start of that with Sheldon van der Linde going wide, but he survived. I was up at turn 3, but there's lots of runoff there, so there's no harm done. But of course he never got the time to be able to improve his position up the order. And then just to round it out, Marius Zug 24th, Rolf Inaischen 25th. There's another one with a 3-place grid penalty. Alessio Delay to 26th. Götz qualifying 2nd. Apologies for the colourful language from the team radio of Sheldon van der Linde, who's getting more and more frustrated.
Hey, just one more left, then cool down, find a spot. Okay.
And that's where he went wide.
Stop talking to me, just let me do this.
Yeah, that wasn't ideal timing, was it? Trying to break for the corner, and he's getting the message, he's got one more lap, and it might just have been enough to put him off that. But Maro Engel on pole position. Maxi Götz qualifies 2nd, but has a 3-place grid penalty. So Nick Cassidy is going to start on the front row of the grid for the 2nd time this weekend. He qualifies 3rd, but will start 2nd. And Felipe Fraga will start 3rd on the grid, having qualified 4th. Philip Eng qualified in 5th place, so it'll be Götz in 5th with his 3-place grid penalty, and Eng 6th. So lots and lots to talk about in that session. A new pole sitter in DTM, it's Maro Engel. Let's go down to the pit lane and get some reaction now with Verena.
And I'm here with Maxi Götz, best qualifying so far in this season. But tell us about the visibility, the grip, I mean, just the condition of the track. It must have been a nightmare out there.
Yeah, it started already quite heavily raining when we went out after green flag. And I thought, okay, now it's time to nail it in the first laps, because we expected more rain, and exactly this happened. We faced more aquaplaning after a few minutes, so in the end it was the right decision to set a lap time in the beginning. Of course, it was not easy. Even in my fastest lap, I was going like crazy, swimming over the water. It was really tough. I missed a bit the pole position by 2/10, which is a shame, because theoretical I would be 3/10 ahead. But in the end, yeah, I'm super happy with that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Maxi, and back to you.
Thanks very much, Verena. Yeah, so that was the confirmation that the drivers thought, yeah, we've got to get some laps in early here. It might get worse, and the red flags might be an issue as well. Well, in terms of the front runners, the championship positions and points don't really change because none of them qualified in the top 3. But Sheldon van der Linde, of course, with this 9-place grid penalty, he's going to be right in the middle of the field with work to do. Rennie Rast will be better off 10th on the grid, and he's 13 points behind in the championship. Lucas Auer has qualified only 14th, third in the championship. But Mirko Bortolotti back in 23rd position, needs one of his customary charges through the field here if he's to pick up some points and keep himself in the hunt going into the final weekend at Hockenheim. Third fastest then, but starting second on the grid, Nick Cassidy looking for a hat-trick of race victories, having won race 2 at Spa and race 1 here yesterday. We just heard from the reigning champion Maxi Götz in the Mercedes AMG Team Win-Win machine, qualifying in second place. But it's Maro Engel with the best lap of the session that qualifies on pole easily, really, with a 1 minute 40.776 seconds. He gets the chance to start from pole position in the DTM for the first time. So a very interesting grid for this afternoon's race. That's it for now from me, Chris Hartley, in the commentary box. Let's get back down to the pit lane now and to Verena.
And I've got the pole setter here, Maro Engel. Congratulations, it's your first pole this season, so you must be absolutely thrilled.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a tough time the last few weekends, so this is great for the whole team. You know, they worked really, really hard. We had some issues with the car, and they really worked tirelessly to fix them, and this is a great reward.
Absolutely, and I mean, the conditions out there are just really a nightmare, but I guess Mercedes, I mean, also Maxi was doing really well. You guys are really good in the rain.
Yeah, it's a perfect result for us. I mean, you know, I guess we knew, you know, you had to push every single lap because you didn't know if it's going to get wet or not, and so I pushed from lap 1. It was sketchy. I had plenty of moments on the lap with aquaplaning, but yeah, just a really good lap in the end.
All right, well, thank you very much, Maro. We're looking forward to a race, that's for sure. Let's see what the conditions are going to be like then. It's probably going to rain all day, but we're excited and we can't wait. So do enjoy the highlights, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.